what we're doing now, for instance, is not going to be downloadable as a podcast. It's a stream, but I think they're all netcasts. It's a broadcast on the internet, so that's why I like the word netcast. It didn't catch on, and I was considered a madman. But that was my attempt to kind of broaden it. Oh, good. We've got some video from Philip. There we go.
Hey.
There we go.
Yeah, plugged in my little small tiny webcam.
Good.
So,
could you show us your studio, Philip?
Oh, my studio. Well, you see, I can show you if it's...
He's got this really cool table, which is an old broadcasting table from the 60s.
Oh, that's so hip.
I don't know if you can see it right now. It's an old broadcasting table from the 60s or 70s. So you have here, which is a feathered thing for microphones.
Yeah.
So you
gosh.
get. And
I've worked in many a studio with tables like that. Yeah, that's a very nice thing to have.
Yeah, I think it's 300 kilos or something because you have concrete in the foot.
Right, because otherwise you get vibration from the.
Right. So this is a table, and we have a mixer here. So
you've got quite the setup. So this is a pretty serious. You're a dedicated podcaster.
Yeah, of course. I spend a lot of time doing podcasts. But the one big thing is you cannot make money with it. That's very hard. I don't know how you approach companies directly. You say, well, I'd like to advertise, or would you like to advertise? That's hard to find money here. I mean, I know friends who have an audience like 100,000 a week, and there are 4 of them, and they make a turnaround of 20,000 euros a year with 4 people and an audience of 100,000 people a week. So it's
not an easy thing to do, but hang in there, because I think what's happening is that companies are starting to realize that podcasts are actually a great place to advertise, and that they're certainly learning that here in the States.
There's some difference. I was working in a podcasting advertising company. They're also based in Berkeley, and what they did was like putting advertisements in front of the podcast. So this is what you do. Like, let this part of me. Let this be part of my interview for you.
Okay.
So you do as well, like in-show advertisements, right?
Yeah, and in fact, in America, it's pretty common in traditional radio to do that. So going back to the earliest days of radio, the hosts would do the ads. And I remember when I started doing that, I started getting nasty emails, particularly from the Brits. They said, how could you do your own ads? And I think it just is, culturally, it wasn't done so much in other countries. But here in America, it's a grand old tradition. And, you know, I come from radio, and I just thought, I think people will accept the idea of me doing the ads, and it now has the advantage of it's kind of interwoven into the content, so it's more difficult to skip it. You're less incented to skip it, and we try to make the ad something more interesting with some information in there. The audible book ads, the audiobook ads we do, for instance, we recommend a book and we do a review of a book.
Maybe it's a hard question, but how far would you go? Would you like ad for everything, like ExxonMobil or like the bad companies?
No. In fact, we've turned down advertisers, so we're very selective. The ad has to be. It won't work if it's a company I don't believe in. So it has to be something I use and believe in, or it just won't work. So it's just not practical to accept an ad from somebody I don't like. On the other hand, there is this kind of issue of separation of advertising and editorial, and that's a difficult challenge, because in a magazine or a large organization you can have the ad department selling the ads, somebody in it kind of outside of the organization recording the ads, and so or making ads, so there's no crossover between the advertising and the editorial content. Here we blur that line a little bit, and so I really have to emphasize that there's a separation between, the advertisers don't get special treatment on our shows, that editorially we're pure. So we kind of bend over backwards in the other areas to try to kind of encourage the notion that we really aren't being bought by our advertisers. They buy ad time, that's all they buy. But again, if it's somebody that I like and use anyway, it's less of a challenge, because I would be recommending them anyway. So it's a tough one, but we need to pay for it. So we have to compromise in some way.
So how does it work money-wise? If I can ask
originally, my plan was, when we first started this 4 or 5 years ago, was I'm going to take donations from the audience. We'll do it kind of like public radio does it in the U.S., where it essentially runs off of contributions from the listeners. And I was hoping that we could do that. Public radio in the U.S. they estimate about 4% of the audience donates. Our number is about, it's hard for me to say, but it's probably 1% or less donate. So it's a much lower number. Of course, I'm not always begging. I very rarely beg for money. And so we found that there just wasn't enough financial support from our listeners. I don't think people will pay for podcasts. I think that we're so, at least in the U.S., we're so used to free content, free radio shows and free TV shows. We've never had to pay for them, that there's just no culture of paying for this stuff. So I think really the only choice is to put advertising in there. It's what we're used to in America. We only do at most one ad every half hour, so it's not, it doesn't take over the show. And we do quite well. I mean, we're, knock on wood, we have a group of advertisers who are getting great results from us. They pay a premium price to be on these shows. We charge more than any other podcast that I know of. But because we deliver results that are, very, very good, it's worth it for them.
So what do you think? Philip and me, we're both like traditional journalists on the one hand, so that's how we earn our money, so the station pays us.
You have the same issue, don't you, of integrity?
But on the other hand, I often, I gave a workshop to a TV station in Germany, and I told all these journalists there, hey, maybe it would be the best idea to just go home and do whatever you want. So would you recommend this? Because you're the guy who did it, right?
I did do it, but I didn't do it as crazy as you suggest, because I kept my radio job. I still have a real job, at a traditional radio that's broadcast in the U.S. I kind of bootstrapped it. I did it carefully, and I didn't do it suddenly. And I don't think that most people, we have right now in the United States, and I imagine it's the same in Germany, newspapers are going out of business. They just cannot afford to print the newspapers. It's too expensive. A lot of print journalists are losing their jobs, and many of them are turning to blogging and web stuff. But you don't instantly make the same amount of money, and they don't get paid that well to begin with in the as a newspaper reporter. But they don't make that same kind of money online, and they're not going to for years. It takes you years to build this up. So I was very careful to kind of slowly move from traditional media into new media. I have a family. I have kids. I have to take care of. So I can't. I couldn't just go crazy and pull the plug on that. And I would encourage people to be kind of judicious. As you know, there's just not a lot of money in new media yet. I believe that the new media is the future of all media. That this is where it's heading. That the internet distribution and grassroots production is the future of media. But we're so early yet that I don't think advertisers have come along yet. We have a long way to go before the money will be there.
Our radio show, we have one interactive element. Of course, we've got a blog and people can comment on that, and we've got a chat which is running sometimes when we do it, and we've got one category which is called Blogspiel. So you can upload MP3 files of anything you want, and
that's great.
If it's good, we play it. So it's more
Fantastic.
onto sound art and stuff like this. We've been doing this since 3 years or so. So in the beginning, or 2 years, in the beginning people were really interested and they uploaded a lot of stuff. Now it's getting a bit less, unfortunately. But do you think old media, as one part of myself is old media, as a part of yourself as well as old media, do you think old media, they can learn from new media concerning user interaction?
Well, old media has to learn from new media because here it comes. New media is on the way. If you don't, get out of the way, old media, if you're not going to learn. I think one thing that I learned very quickly was that old media thinks of its listeners as an audience. They think of it as a monologue. And what I've learned really is it's a conversation, and it's not your audience, it's your community. Now, it sounds... It's kind of nebulous, but it really is important to think of your audience as a community. And what that means is involving them in what you do, making them part of what you do in a way that traditional media isn't very good at. We have 5 chat rooms going all the time, and they're on the screen here. I see them as they're going on. We're trying to incorporate more call-ins. We have a wiki. We're trying to encourage more participation. And